วัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีท่านแขกผู้มีเกียรติครับ
สวัสดีค่ะขอต้อนรับทุกท่านนะคะเข้าสู่การประชุมวิชาการหัวข้อ Cardiff Model เพื่อป้องกันเหตุความรุนแรงค่ะ
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen from the online platform from many countries. It's welcome everyone to the special academic meeting, the Cardiff Model for Violence Prevention.
ค่ะสำหรับในโอกาสนี้นะคะพวกเราได้รับเกียรติเป็นอย่างสูงนะคะสำหรับการบรรยายพิเศษนะคะจากท่านศาสตราจารย์ดร.โจนาธาน P. Shepherd นะคะท่านได้รับพระราชทานรางวัลสมเด็จเจ้าฟ้ามหิดลสาขาการสาธารณสุขในปี 2567 นี้นะคะ
Today we have a highly honor from by Professor Dr. Jonathan P. Shepherd, Prince Mahidol Award Laureate for 2024.
ค่ะและในการประชุมวันนี้นะคะพวกเราก็ได้รับความร่วมมือนะคะจากหลายๆหน่วยงานนะคะจะเห็นได้ว่าบริเวณด้านหน้าห้องประชุมนะคะก็จะมีการจัดนิทรรศการนะคะอยู่บริเวณด้านหน้านะคะแล้วก็ได้รับความร่วมมือจากหน่วยงานนะคะทั้งในจากกรมสุขภาพจิตนะคะกองบริหารระบบบริการสุขภาพจิตนะคะกรมควบคุมโรคนะคะกองกำกับการสวัสดิภาพเด็กและสตรีจากสำนักงานตำรวจแห่งชาตินะคะสถาบันการแพทย์ฉุกเฉินแห่งชาติและกรมกิจการสตรีและสถาบันครอบครัวของกระทรวงพัฒนาสังคมและความมั่นคงของมนุษย์นะคะซึ่งสำหรับนิทรรศการที่จัดอยู่ด้านหน้านะคะท่านผู้เข้าร่วมประชุมที่อยู่นะออนไซต์ที่นี่นะคะท่านก็อาจจะได้ร่วมกิจกรรมนะคะโดยการไปแชร์นะคะความประทับใจและสิ่งที่ได้เรียนรู้จากการประชุมวิชาการในวันนี้ได้นะคะ
Okay, today we have many of participants from various in Thailand, okay, and also from the participant online from Myanmar, from Taiwan, from Sri Lanka, Laos, Vietnam, and Indonesia in this conference today.
ซึ่งการประชุมของเรานะคะเป็นแบบไฮบริดนะคะเรามีท่านผู้เข้าร่วมประชุมนะคะที่เป็นผู้มีเกียรติที่อยู่ที่ออนไซต์ณที่นี้นะคะเราจัดที่โรงพยาบาลศรีธัญญาจังหวัดนนทบุรีค่ะ
Yes. And today conference we setting at Dr. Ketipum Wongrajit Conference Room, Sri Thanya Hospital, Nonthaburi, Thailand.
นอกจากนี้นะคะเรายังมีท่านผู้มีเกียรตินะคะและผู้บริหารรวมถึงคณาจารย์อีกหลายท่านเลยนะคะที่ร่วมอยู่ในระบบออนไลน์ของเรานะคะต้องใช้เวลาสักครู่เดียวนะคะเพื่อเป็นการเตรียมเข้าสู่พิธีเปิดอย่างเป็นทางการนะคะซึ่งวันนี้นะคะพวกเราก็ได้รับเกียรติเป็นอย่างสูงนะคะจากท่านปลัดกระทรวงสาธารณสุขนะคะท่านนายแพทย์โอภาสการกวินพงศ์นะคะท่านจะได้มาเป็นประธานในพิธีในวันนี้นะคะณ บัดนี้นะคะเป็นเวลาอันสมควรแล้วนะคะดิฉันขออนุญาตนำทุกท่านนะคะเข้าสู่พิธีเปิดอย่างเป็นทางการนะคะซึ่งเราได้รับเกียรติเป็นอย่างสูงนะคะจากท่านปลัดกระทรวงสาธารณสุขท่านนายแพทย์โอภาสการกวินพงศ์ค่ะในโอกาสนี้นะคะขอเรียนเชิญท่านอธิบดีกรมสุขภาพจิตค่ะท่านนายแพทย์กิติศักดิ์อักษรวงศ์ได้ขึ้นกล่าวรายงานค่ะ
On this occasion, I would like to invite Dr. Kitisak Aksonwong, Director General Department of Mental Health, to kindly deliver the report to the chairman, please.
Professor Dr. Jonathan P. Shepherd, the panel of specialists, the Permanent Secretary, the Ministry of Public Health Administrator, Dr. Opat Karnkawinpong, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Department of Mental Health, I am delighted to welcome you all to the special academic meeting on the Cardiff Model for Violence Prevention. We are honored to have Professor Shepherd, who is the world-renowned expert in violence prevention and the Prince Mahidol Award Lecturer in the field of public health 2024. I am confident that the knowledge Professor Shepherd and other speakers will share with us today will help in creating safer communities and reducing violence in Thailand. It's my honor to invite Dr. Opat Karnkavinpong, the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Public Health, to deliver the opening remarks for this special academic meeting and present the commemorative token to our Professor Shepherd. Dr. Opat, please.
Professor Dr. Jonathan P. Shepherd, the Director General of Department of Mental Health, distinguished guests and all participants, I am pleased and deeply honored to have the opportunity to preside over today's special academic meeting, the Cardiff Model for Violence Prevention. This marks an important starting point for adopting and applying the concept and success of the Cardiff Model for Violence Prevention in Thailand to enhance safety and improve the quality of life for the people. The primary mission of the Ministry of Public Health is to safeguard health and promote the quality of life for citizens. One of our key success is addressing the issue of violence. Therefore, this event can be viewed as a significant opportunity organized by the Department of Mental Health to highlight the situation of violence, a problem that everyone must recognize and prioritize in terms of prevention and resolution, both at the individual and societal levels. On this occasion, I would like to give an honor to Professor Dr. Jonathan P. Shepherd, a visionary scholar. Not only has he successfully developed the Cardiff Model for violence prevention at the international level, but he has also inspired individuals and organizations worldwide to prioritize the use of data as a foundation for addressing societal challenges. I am truly confident that his experience and expertise will serve as a valuable guideline for advancing our work today. Lastly, I would like to express my gratitude to the esteemed speakers, distinguished experts, and stakeholders who have dedicated their time to participate in today's meeting. My thanks also go to the organizing committee for their dedication and effort ensuring the event runs smoothly and successfully. I send my best wishes for the success of this meeting in achieving its objectives and intention. I sincerely hope that everyone will be able to apply the ideas and experience gained here to improve the quality of life of the people. Now, I hereby declare the opening for special academic meeting on the Cardiff Model for Violence Prevention at this moment. Thank you so much.
ขอบพระคุณนะคะท่านปลัดกระทรวงสาธารณสุขนะคะท่านนายแพทย์โอภาสการกวินพงศ์เป็นอย่างสูงค่ะในโอกาสนี้นะคะดิฉันขออนุญาตยังเรียนเชิญท่านนะคะท่านปลัดกระทรวงสาธารณสุขค่ะท่านได้ให้เกียรติมอบของที่ระลึกนะคะเพื่อเป็นเกียรติและแสดงความยินดีนะคะแก่ท่านศาสตราจารย์ดร.โจนาธาน P. Shepherd ผู้ได้รับพระราชทานรางวัลสมเด็จเจ้าฟ้ามหิดลสาขาการสาธารณสุขปี 2567 ค่ะ
Okay, on this occasion, I would like to invite Dr. Opat Gawinpong, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Public Health, to present a token of appreciation and congratulation to Professor Dr. Jonathan P. Shepherd, Prince Mahidol Award Laureate for 2024.
ในลำดับต่อไปนะคะเรียนเชิญท่านผู้บริหารนะคะขึ้นถ่ายภาพค่ะร่วมกับท่านปลัดนะคะและท่านผู้ได้รับรางวัลค่ะเรียนเชิญในชุดที่หนึ่งนะคะค่ะเรียนเชิญตามรายชื่อชุดที่หนึ่งนะคะท่านนายแพทย์โอภาสการกวินพงศ์นะคะท่านปลัดกระทรวงสาธารณสุขท่านยังขึ้นถ่ายภาพกับเรานะคะท่านนายแพทย์กิติศักดิ์อักษรวงศ์ท่านอธิบดีกรมสุขภาพจิตค่ะท่านนายแพทย์สุภมิตรชุนสุทธิสวัสดิ์ประธานมูลนิธิเครือข่ายฝึกอบรมระบาดวิทยาภาคสนามอาเซียนค่ะท่านนายแพทย์วิวัฒน์โรจนพิทยากรนะคะและท่านนายแพทย์คำนวณอึ้งชูศักดิ์ค่ะเรียนเชิญค่ะขออนุญาตท่านผู้บริหารชุดนี้เป็นชุดที่หนึ่งนะคะหลังจากนั้นนะคะเรียนเชิญทุกท่านยังอยู่บนเวทีนะคะเพื่อเป็นเกียรติในการถ่ายภาพอีกสักนิดนะคะโดยท่านผู้บริหารกระทรวงสาธารณสุขนะคะท่านที่ปรึกษากรมสุขภาพจิตท่านรองอธิบดีกรมสุขภาพจิตนะคะท่านนายแพทย์บุรินทร์และท่านแพทย์หญิงมัทุรดาค่ะเรียนเชิญท่านขึ้นบนเวทีนะคะเพื่อถ่ายภาพเป็นชุดที่2ค่ะท่านผู้บริหารกระทรวงสาธารณสุขท่านที่ปรึกษากรมสุขภาพจิตรวมถึงท่านรองอธิบดีกรมสุขภาพจิตนะคะก็ได้ขึ้นบนเวทีเพื่อถ่ายภาพนะคะร่วมกับแขกผู้มีเกียรติของเรานะคะค่ะในชุดสุดท้ายนะคะจะเรียนเชิญท่านผู้บริหารกรมสุขภาพจิตนะคะท่านได้ร่วมถ่ายภาพนะคะเป็นชุดที่3ค่ะ
เรียนเชิญครับ
เรียนเชิญค่ะ
ผู้บริหารที่นั่งบริเวณโซฟาด้านหน้านะครับเรียนเชิญท่านครับ
ค่ะเรียนเชิญท่านอาจจะอยู่ด้านหน้าบริเวณด้านหน้าเวทีนะคะเพื่อให้สามารถเก็บภาพได้หมดนะคะ
อยู่รวมกันครับอาจจะเป็นด้านล่างที่
ด้านหน้าเวที
ด้านหน้าเว
นะคะ
ทีนะครับ
ค่ะ
แล้วก็เชิญฮะ
ค่ะต้องขอบพระคุณนะคะท่านผู้บริหารทุกท่านนะคะที่ได้มาเป็นเกียรตินะคะในงานวันนี้นะคะค่ะขอบพระคุณค่ะขอบพระคุณท่านผู้บริหารทุกท่านนะคะค่ะค่ะเรียนเชิญทุกท่านกลับเข้าพักผ่อนนะคะบริเวณด้านล่างนะคะค่ะและในลำดับต่อไปนะคะจะขออนุญาตใช้เวลาสักนิดเดียวค่ะเพื่อที่เตรียมนะคะพื้นที่เข้าสู่เซสชั่นต่อไปนะคะซึ่งจะเป็นการบรรยายพิเศษนะคะโดยท่านศาสตราจารย์ดร.โจนาธาน P. Shepherd นะคะท่านจะได้บรรยายพิเศษในหัวข้อ Cardiff Model เพื่อป้องกันเหตุความรุนแรงค่ะใช้เวลาสักครู่เดียวนะคะ
So we use a very short time this time for preparing the stage for the next session, a special lecture on the Cardiff Model for Violence Prevention.
ตอนนี้เข้าใจว่าในระบบออนไลน์นะคะก็มีท่านผู้มีเกียรตินะคะที่ร่วมประชุมกับพวกเรานะคะอยู่ในระบบจำนวนมากเลยนะคะได้ข่าวว่าประมาณ 300-400 ท่านด้วยกันนะคะเนื่องจากหัวข้อที่เราจะได้รับฟังบรรยายพิเศษในวันนี้เนี่ยนะว่าเป็นหัวข้อที่เรียกว่าท่านศาสตราจารย์ดร.โจนาธาน P. Shepherd นะคะท่านได้นำเป็นผู้ที่คิดค้นโมเดลนี้ขึ้นมานะคะเป็นการบูรณาการร่วมกันนะคะระหว่างหลายๆงานนะคะเพื่อให้ป้องกันเหตุความรุนแรงค่ะ
พร้อมไหมพร้อมไหมครับพร้อมไหมครับ
ค่ะในระหว่างที่รอความพร้อมบนเวทีนะคะค่ะขออนุญาตเล่าถึงกำหนดการในวันนี้สักเล็กน้อยนะคะหลังจากการบรรยายพิเศษในวันนี้แล้วนะคะเรายังมีช่วงของการเสวนานะคะและการอภิปรายนะคะอีก2ช่วงที่น่าสนใจมากๆเช่นเดียวกันนะคะซึ่งในการเสวนาหลังจากเซสชันนี้นะคะจะเป็นการเสวนาเพื่อเสวนาสร้างแรงบันดาลใจนะคะโดยท่านนายแพทย์วิวัฒน์โรจนพิทยากรนะคะท่านจะได้มาเป็นผู้ดำเนินรายการกิตติมศักดิ์ในช่วงนั้นด้วยค่ะ
Okay, after the special lecture, we have an interesting session. We have the inspirational session on the Cardiff model behind the success and lesson learned for Thailand. So we have the moderator, Dr. Vivat Rojanapithyakon, Prince Mahidol Award laureate for 2009 to be the moderator, our moderator today. And after that, we have a discussion and experience sharing from a perspective of the audience on the implementation of the Cardiff Model for violence prevention for the context of Thailand by many expert speakers.
ค่ะและหลังจากนั้นจะเป็นการอภิปรายนะคะและก็แลกเปลี่ยนมุมมองนะจากผู้รับฟังการปรับใช้ Cardiff Model เพื่อป้องกันความรุนแรงในบริบทของประเทศไทยนะคะซึ่งในโอกาสนี้เนี่ยในเวทีนั้นเราได้รับเกียรตินะคะจากท่านผู้เชี่ยวชาญนะคะท่านผู้มีประสบการณ์นะคะจะได้มาแลกเปลี่ยนกันนะคะจากทั้งหลายหน่วยงานนะคะกรมควบคุมโรคเองนะคะจากกองบัญชาการตำรวจสอบสวนกลางนะคะจากสำนักงานกองทุนสนับสนุนการสร้างเสริมสุขภาพหรือว่าสสสนะคะรวมถึงจากกรมสุขภาพจิตด้วยนะคะท่านจะได้มาแลกเปลี่ยนมุมมองกันค่ะค่ะเข้าใจว่าขณะนี้นะคะทางเวทีพร้อมแล้วนะคะดิฉันขอนำทุกท่านนะคะขอนำทุกท่านนะคะเข้าสู่เซสชันการบรรยายพิเศษค่ะหัวข้อ Cardiff Model เพื่อป้องกันเหตุความรุนแรงโดยศาสตราจารย์ดร.โจนาธาน P. Shepherd ผู้ได้รับพระราชทานรางวัลสมเด็จเจ้าฟ้ามหิดลสาขาการสาธารณสุขปี 2567 ผู้อำนวยการสถาบันนวัตกรรมทางอาชญากรรมความมั่นคงและการสืบสวนมหาวิทยาลัยคาร์ดิฟสหราชอาณาจักรค่ะ
Okay, now on this session, we have a special lecture on Cardiff Model for Violence Prevention by Professor Dr. Jonathan P. Shepherd, Prince Mahidol Award laureate 2024, Director Institute for Crime and Security Innovation, Cardiff University, United Kingdom. And I would like to take this opportunity to introduce our speaker. Professor Jonathan P. Shepherd graduated with a Bachelor of Dental Surgery from King's College, University of London, Master's degree in Specialist Training in Oral Surgery from the University of Oxford, and Doctorate from University of Bristol, United Kingdom. He served as Director of Cardiff University's Violence Research Group for 22 years. Professor Dr. Shepherd's significantly achievement was developed and implementation for the Cardiff Model for Violence Prevention. Ladies and gentlemen, please kindly welcome Professor Dr. Jonathan P. Shepherd.
Well, thank you very much indeed for the invitation to speak to you today, and many congratulations on this meeting. It's a great honour for me to be here and to meet you all, and what a brilliantly organised meeting this is, and my wife and I are very grateful for the superb hospitality that you've extended to us, so thank you very much. Now then, let's have the first slide. First slide, please. There we are. So it's a great honour for me to be the laureate for the 2024 Prince Mahidol Public Health Award, and I'm most grateful to you, and thank you for the introduction. Next slide, please. So violence is an important problem, and I want to start with two of my own patients. I'm a maxillofacial surgeon, and this young man was attacked by someone with a knife, and he has permanently disfiguring injury, as you can see. Violence is disfiguring, it's frightening, it blights cities like London and Chicago, wherever it is around the world, and it costs a great deal of money because it involves policing, it involves the courts, probation service, prisons, health services, so it costs a lot. So it's a big burden on society. Now, this is another one of my patients. Next slide, please. So this young lady was attacked by her boyfriend, and I show this slide because it illustrates the mental health impact of violence. She was depressed afterwards. She suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder with flashbacks and disordered sleep and all the rest of it. And we found that around 40% of people who are injured in violence go on to develop post-traumatic stress disorder. So this is not just a problem for physical health, but also for mental health as well. Next slide, please. Now, this is a very important discovery from my own PhD studies. I discovered during that time in the 1980s that the police don't know about 2/3 of violence, 60–70% of violence, which results in hospital treatment. And at least half of violence which results in emergency hospital treatment is not known to police. And that's because police knowledge of violence depends on people reporting violence, but many choose not to report for these reasons. People are afraid of reprisals if they go to the police. So someone injured in a domestic violence doesn't want the assailant, their own partner, to know about this because of reprisals. Or if the manager of a big nightclub or tavern, he is not going to want the police to know about violence in their premises. So people are afraid of reprisals, so they don't report to the police. Another reason why people don't go to the police is because they don't want their own behavior scrutinized. So they may be carrying a knife, they may be in the drug trade, they may be in a gang, they may be intoxicated regularly. So for all those reasons, they don't want the police to know when they get injured, although of course they are themselves at great risk of being injured. And then the other reason is that people don't go to the police because they don't know who hit them. They think, well, what can the police do? I don't know who it was who attacked me. So for all those reasons, many people don't report what's happened. Next slide, please. Now, we found in my own studies that 76% of people in these 3 cities in the UK resulted in emergency hospital treatment were not known to the police. So that means that only a third of violence which causes serious injury is known to the police in those cities. And then Christian Fagerman here, this is working, yeah. This man, no, need to go back, please. Thank you. He found that in Denmark, exactly the same finding, that the police don't know about 2/3 of violence that put people in his emergency department. And then more recently, Daniel Wu in the Grady Hospital in Atlanta found that almost 90% of violence which resulted in emergency hospital treatment were not known to police. And then even if we look at the most serious violence with gunshot wounds, Arthur Kellerman here found that in Atlanta, 13% of shootings even were not known to the police. So this is a universal issue. It's a common issue around the world that for violence measurement and prevention, that the agency mostly responsible for controlling violence, the police, don't know about a great deal of violence that causes serious injury. Next one, please. So the implications of that finding are really twofold. First of all, that we can use emergency department data to measure violence. And secondly, and most importantly, we can use data from emergency departments to prevent violence. And that's what the Cardiff Model is all about. So it's clear from this research, this background, these discoveries, that data collected in emergency departments is a unique resource which can add significantly to police knowledge and also to our ability to prevent violence. Next one, please. So I want to spend a few minutes now talking about the use of emergency department data to measure violence. Next one, please. So this is some epidemiology here. So the question is or are emergency department data a valid and reliable measure of violence? And so we looked at the seasonal variation and found negative relationships for the autumn, the spring and the winter. That's compared to the summer. So from this study, which is a UK study of violence using emergency department data from across the country, we find what we'd expect to find, that in the summer there is more violence than the other seasons of the year. For sport, the fourth line, that is soccer, football World Cup tournaments or rugby union tournaments, that violence went up, increased. There was a positive relationship between violence and major sports competitions. Next one, there's a negative relationship between alcohol prices, beer prices, and violence. So the higher the price of beer and alcohol, the lower the violence. And that's proved to be really a direct cause. If the cost of alcohol goes up with duty, taxes imposed by the government, then violence goes down. The next one is real house prices is negatively related. So if you live in an affluent area, then the chances of violence are lower. And then the next one, I just conclude with this, that youth unemployment is negatively related. So the more the youth are unemployed, don't have a job, then violence decreases. There's a negative relationship there, and that's to do with the disposable income amongst young people. So all this suggests that emergency department data is a valid and reliable measure of violence. Next one, please. So my colleagues and I collect violence data from emergency departments from around 150 emergency departments around England and Wales, and we use that to measure trends in violence in the United Kingdom. Next one, please. Now, the black dots here are the trends in violence using emergency department data from 2002 to 2023, so 2 decades here. And the striking thing from this is that this trend is very similar to the trend that is obtained from the National Crime Survey. So that's like the National Crime Victimization Survey in the United States, the Crime Survey for England and Wales. And so the fact that these are very similar trends from 2 very different sources of data also confirms that emergency department data do represent a valid and reliable measure of violence. So that's by way of introduction. Now, next one, please. Now, this enables us to measure things that we would not be able to measure otherwise. So this is a graph which shows violence levels in the city of Cardiff during the COVID period, and each of these shaded bars here are the COVID lockdowns. And what you can see from this is that the dark dots at the bottom here over the period 2019 to 2021 represent violence inside the home, And you can see there that there was no increase during the COVID period in violence inside the home. But outside the home, those are the dotted lines. There was a very obvious decrease in violence resulting in emergency department treatment. And so no change inside the home, even in a lockdown period, but significant falls in violence outside the home for females, girls aged 0 to 17, males of all ages, and violence caused by acquaintances, strangers, and security staff, like door staff in nightclubs. Next one, please. And this measurement could not be done with police data or with crime survey data because there just isn't enough data. And of course, for children, people don't go to the police when a child is injured in violence, say at school, for example. So top left, this is all violence during the COVID period. Again, decreases during the lockdown periods. When it comes to children, there was a very significant decrease during the lockdown period. So children were safer during the lockdowns when they were confined to their homes than they were when the schools were open. And then the last slide here on measurement is about weapon use. So the dark dots here, this is where a weapon was used. And you can see that right the way through the COVID period, there was no increase in weapon use in violence. And that's surprising because you'd think, wouldn't you, that when people were confined to their homes, where knives, for example, are universally available, that they'd be used more. But we found that that's not the case. It's violence where no weapon is used, where the violence decreases. So that's what I want to say about the use of emergency department data to measure violence. Next one, please. So I want to talk now, with that introduction, about the Cardiff Model, which is the use of these data, the use of emergency department data to prevent violence. Next one, please. Now, these are the key features of the Cardiff Model. So we need to continuously record data on violence date, the time, the precise location using a free text field. So it's the name of the school, the name of the nightclub, the name of the street, the name of the park, etc., is recorded when patients injured in violence attend the emergency department, what weapon was used, the number of assailants, because more than one assailant, more than one attacker is often a signal of gang violence, and then the relationship between the injured person and their attacker. So was it a partner, a family member, acquaintance, or a stranger, for example? So those are the key data that drive the Cardiff Model. And those data are best recorded by emergency department receptionists. In the United States, it's been found that triage nurses are very good at doing this as well. Next step, all those data are anonymized. So this is not about using personal data, addresses, phone numbers, email addresses. The data are all anonymized and shared by hospitals with emergency departments. And then those data are combined with police data because, of course, the police do know a lot about violence and where it's happened, but only very incompletely. And then the data is combined, emergency department data are combined with police data and summarized by an analyst. And then, importantly, those data are translated into practical prevention by a city violence prevention board. And I'm going to talk in a little while about Cardiff's Violence Prevention Board, which implements prevention based on these data. Next one, please. Yeah, so this is just a random week in January 2022 from our own emergency department. And you can see here on the left the column for the locations of the violence. So it starts off with a high school, another high school, domestic violence in a certain street. Tesco is a supermarket, a shopping mall, and then roads and particular locations where the violence takes place. And these data are best recorded with a free text field in the emergency department software. And then the next column is the date of the violence. The next column is what weapon was used. So it's somebody's been kicked, they've been hit with a fist, hit with a blunt object. Next one was a sharp object, which could be a glass or a knife, a fist, pushed, and a lot of fist fights here. Then the next column is the relationship between the injured person and their attacker. So there are acquaintances, friends, partners, strangers, etc. here. And then a work client down here. So that establishes the relationship between the assailant and their victim. And then there is the number of assailants. So you can see from this that there are many assaults, much violence in this particular week, and this is typical, where there is more than one assailant. So three or more. So this is a sign of gang violence, gang activity. Next one, please. And so this is just one of many licensed premises. This is a tavern. So these data identify particular premises, particular taverns, nightclubs, etc. Next one, please. Now, I want to talk now about the Cardiff Model in London, in the United States, in Milwaukee, in Jamaica, and in Australia, to give some international examples for you. And we start with London. And on the left, there are this is not very bright. The hotspots here, there's only one hotspot from police data. Just one hotspot for violence in the east part of London, the capital city of the UK. But look at the additional hotspots, the additional concentrations of violence, which are identified from emergency department data. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 additional hotspots. Now, policing depends upon, effective policing depends upon the identification of concentrations of violence so that these places can be targeted. So it's clear from this that emergency department data adds a great deal to the knowledge of geographical distribution of violence. Next one, please. Now, this is very familiar, of course, in public health. This is John Snow and the Broad Street Pump in London. This is cholera hotspots in Victoria and London, and I'm sure there's a great history of identifying cholera hotspots in the 19th century here in Bangkok and elsewhere in Thailand. But John Snow famously identified the source of cholera from this pump, and he mapped deaths from cholera. So it's exactly the same principle with violence prevention, to understand where the violence is happening, in the same way that infectious disease was identified as a source of cholera in the 19th century. Next one, please. Now, we return now to London, and these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red marks here were violent incidents identified in emergency departments in London. And these were not known to the police at all. The police data is the blue marks. So this hotspot was not evident from police data at all. And when the police went to this hotspot, it was found to be a crack house, somewhere where crack cocaine was being marketed and distributed and used. So this shows that the Cardiff model is effective in identifying drug-related violence. And of course, people who are engaged in the drug trade are not going to want the police to know about their activity, even though they are at risk themselves of being injured in violence. So that's one particular micro-level use of these emergency department data. And this is in East London, again in London. Next one, please. Now, we turn now to the Cardiff model in the United States, and this is the city of Milwaukee. So top right here is Lake Michigan. Chicago is where the flowers are here. And these are data from the Children's Hospital Emergency Department on the right here. And on the left, there are police data, again, about violence in which children are injured. And you can see quite clearly that there is an additional hotspot identified in the city of Milwaukee solely, only from emergency department data. This one. That one. And when this was investigated, it was found that this hotspot was where there are 2 schools and a park associated with those schools. So that enabled the services in the city to target that hotspot with prevention activity. And that would not have been possible without data from the Children's Hospital Emergency Department. And this is the very first Cardiff model, Cardiff Violence Prevention Board in the city of Atlanta in the United States, which has been running now for about almost 10 years now. Next one, please. Now, we turn now to Jamaica, and this shows the Cardiff model in action in Jamaica. And again, on the left there, you can see each dot represents violence identified by the police in Kingston, which is the capital city of Jamaica. But on the right, each of the yellow dots represents a violent incident which leads to emergency department treatment. And the horizontal arrow there shows a district of the capital city of Jamaica where the violence is concentrated, which is not visible from police data at all. So again, that enables police to target this community here, and they would not even know that it was a problem with police data. It needed emergency department data to demonstrate that. Now, the vertical arrow here shows another hotspot just from emergency department data, which is around a transport hub. So that's a square where buses, minibuses used, and shoppers and school children and people coming to work use that as for their own transport. So that enabled the police to target that area. And Jamaica is actually one of the best examples of the comprehensive implementation of the Cardiff model in any country around the world. They've done it really well with the Geoformatics Institute at the University of the West Indies. Next one, please. Now, finally, the final example I've got for you is the Gold Coast in Australia, on the east coast of the of Australia. And here's the sea with lots of surfers here. And the challenge, it's like Bangkok, isn't it? You know, how do you police, how do you prevent violence in a complex area like this with lots of high rises, tens of thousands of visitors every year. Next slide, please. And these two researchers, this is Dominique Andrade, who's a PhD student, and Ross Hommel, who works at Griffith University in Australia, they concluded from this is the map of the same area, that the accuracy of targeted policing was significantly improved using information from emergency health services. So that's emergency departments and ambulances, but preferentially and mostly from emergency departments. So next one. Thank you. So this is the Violence Prevention Board for the City of Cardiff. It first met in July 1997, so it's quite old now, and I was privileged to chair this group for 2 decades, from 1997 until 2017, when my emergency department specialist took over. I'm not going to spend a lot of time identifying all these people, but there are police officers here. There's a police manager here, a police inspector. The lady here, the city licensing officer, is responsible for alcohol licensing in the city, giving licenses to nightclubs, taverns, etc. There's the public health specialist is there, and the link with the country's police commissioner is on the left there, and there's a local government official there as well. So this is the board which translates the data from the emergency department and the police combined into practical prevention. But we find that it's not just the data that's effective, but it's this accountability for prevention which is generated when a group of people like this, who don't normally work together, they usually work in their own silos. The police work in their silo, health works in their silo, city governments tend to work in their own silo. But when they come together like this, then there's accountability for prevention which is developed, which is generated. So the police become accountable to health, the city government becomes accountable to the police, and this is a powerful, this collaboration is a powerful way in which the Cardiff model works. So it's the data and it's the group coming together, the multidisciplinary group coming together to prevent violence. Next one, please. No, just 2 examples. So the data uniquely discovered that in these retail outlets here, that was a focus for violence. And so the group put a CCTV camera on the top of that black pole there, so that provided surveillance there. So that enabled the police to get down the road, round the corner, to deal with violence when it began to develop. And then on the bottom one here below, this is a major park in the centre of Cardiff. And Cardiff has a population of around 500,000 people, and with the Parks Department, the vegetation, the shrubs, the bushes were cut down to increase natural surveillance. And there's a particular issue with homophobic violence in that park, and that reduced really to 0 as a result of increasing this natural surveillance. Next one, please. So, and this is about effective violence prevention. We need to be implementing things that we know are effective. So it's like evidence-based medicine, but it's evidence-based public health. So it's about targeted policing and the use of public space CCTV cameras. It's about disrupting drug supply and gang activity. It's about reducing alcohol availability and increasing alcohol prices. Domestic violence interventions like multi-agency risk assessment conferences, and then situational interventions, they're called in criminology. Park redesign, having toughened beer glasses, for example, that don't break when people are hit with them. School-based safeguarding. But there are sources of guidance on which violence prevention interventions are effective from the Campbell Collaboration Crime and Justice systematic reviews and from the Youth Endowment Fund and Centre for Crime Reduction Toolkit. So these toolkits are online and available, including with the WHO, but I particularly draw your attention to the Campbell Collaboration Crime and Justice systematic reviews and the Youth Endowment Fund for sources of advice on which violence prevention interventions are best used. Next one, please. So the question then arises, is the Cardiff Model evidence-based? Next one, please. So this is violence from the emergency department perspective over the last quarter of a century, 2000 to 2024, and you can see a reduction, and each one of these dots is a weekly count, and you can see here that violence is reduced from around 80 incidents per week, 80 patients per week, to about 30 here. But of course, that's not a controlled study, is it? We need a counterfactual here. We need a control to really convince that this is working. Next one, please. So we did a trial of this approach, and the red dots here are for 13 cities comparable with Cardiff, which were not using the Cardiff model at this time. And then the blue dots are what was happening in the intervention city, which is Cardiff. And you can see from this that from the red dotted line here, that almost as soon as we started to use emergency department data to prevent violence in the city, violence started to go down, but it was going up in the other cities. But this is also evidence of the sustainability of this approach, because out here, there is still a gap between the confidence interval here and of the 13 control cities compared to the intervention city. And at the same time, violence-related hospital admissions went down in the intervention city, but up in the comparison city. So this is pretty good evidence that the Cardiff model is effective. And I should say that the evaluation was done by Curtis Florence here, who is a health economist at the CDC in the United States. He collaborated with us to evaluate this approach. Next one, please. Now, bear with me on this. This is a little bit complicated, but we also found that there was an increase in minor violence. So that's violence where no one was injured. They're public order offences, to use the criminal justice term. And we puzzled about this. Why should this be that there's an increase in no injury at the same time as a decrease in serious injury? Next one, please. And we realized that the same mechanism here is going on as occurs with CCTV. So I'm going to turn now to illustrate very briefly how public space, closed circuit television prevents violence. Next one. So on the left here, this is police data. And we compared 5 cities with CCTV in the street with 5 control cities. And perhaps you won't be surprised to learn that if you put 200 cameras in the middle of a city, the police find out about more violence. Now, that doesn't mean, of course, that CCTV causes more violence. It means that have the surveillance there through the CCTV and the police identify more violence. Violence ascertainment goes up. Now, look at this with regard to emergency department. That's accident in emergency. It means the same thing, emergency department data. And again, put 200 cameras in the middle of a city, in the street, and we find that violence goes down that violence recorded in emergency departments actually goes down. So what's happening here is that because the police are ascertaining more violence and intervening more often, then injury goes down, but their own ascertainment goes up. So that explains why the minor violence actually increases, violence with no injury. So what it means is if I'm looking at screens with from cameras in Bangkok, for example, I can, through my microphone, I can direct the police to that violence as it kicks off, or an argument, the precursor for violence. The police then go down the street, round the corner with their patrol cars and stop violence before it results in serious injury. So that's the mechanism here. Next one, please. Now, this has been studied, the effectiveness of the Cardiff model, with a systematic review, 2 systematic reviews now, and meta-analysis. And the top one here, this systematic review was led by public health academics in Deakin University in Australia, and they concluded that all studies attempting to measure intervention effectiveness, that's Cardiff model effectiveness, reported substantial reductions in violence and emergency department attendances, with one reporting no change. So that is good evidence that this is effective. And all these studies have been published, as you can see. And then the second one here was a meta-analysis carried out by public health academics in the University of Cape Town. And that concluded that the introduction of the Cardiff model shows significant results in reducing violence, reducing assault. And the incident rate ratio is 0.8, so that's a 20% decrease over all the studies that they identified. Next one, please. Now, this slide shows the effectiveness of the Cardiff model in terms of homicide. And this slide was sent to me by Manuel Eisner, who is a criminologist at the University of Cambridge. And he noticed that violence in Cardiff, the intervention city, early on, the first intervention city, that's the pale blue dots here. When we implemented the Cardiff model in the city, homicides went down. In comparison, other cities in the UK, Edinburgh, Leeds, London, Birmingham, homicide went up. Where is it? It was coming down in the intervention city. So this is evidence that the Cardiff model reduces homicide. Next one, please. Now, we also carried out a cost-benefit analysis because from a public health point of view, we need to know whether this is worth it. We know it's effective, but from a cost-benefit perspective, is this worth investing in? And so, again, this was carried out by Curtis Florence in the CDC in the United States. And what we found was that, sure, there's a cost of the intervention. There's a cost associated with the Violence Prevention Board meeting, for example, and to implement violence prevention. But it's dwarfed, it's hugely less than the annual cost of the woundings avoided, the prevention. So £5,000 here, UK pounds, convert that to dollars, it's about, what, $7,000 US dollars, and the cost of the prevention, the cost of the woundings avoided is 800 or $1 million a year. So the cost of the prevention is very much less than the cost of the woundings, which would have occurred without the Cardiff model. So spend $1 and you save 82. And then we calculated or estimated the costs avoided by the health service and the criminal justice system. So this is just the costs avoided by criminal justice. That's probation, courts, prisons. etc., and spend £1 and save 19. And then the UK government in 2019 carried out an impact assessment and estimated that the cost savings for implementing the Cardiff model for each local authority, that's each city government area, was £2.7 million per year. And furthermore, the UK government estimated that if the Cardiff model was implemented in just 5% of local authority, that's city government areas, the cost savings were estimated to be almost £1 billion over 10 years. So this is highly cost effective from a government cost benefit analysis perspective. Next one, please. So how does it work? And I'm coming to the end now, and thank you very much for listening and bearing with me. So in summary, the Cardiff model works through earlier and more frequent police intervention. So that represents the public health benefits of precision policing, hotspot policing, identifying where the hotspots for violence are, and then organising policing to target those hotspots. It's about identification of weapon trends, and that informs weapon control. Could be the use of knives, and we've done a lot of research on glasses as weapons, which I haven't had time to talk about now, but I'm very happy to talk about that perhaps afterwards if anybody's interested. So that's policing, and next we come to the identification of park, pedestrian thoroughfare and school violence locations. So those are often the responsibility of city governments, aren't they? Safety in streets, in parks and schools. So this is what local authorities, city governments can do particularly. So this is police work, city government work, and then lastly, the identification and support of people injured in domestic violence. And that's the job for hospitals to lead, so that there's someone in the emergency department who can identify people injured in domestic violence and then work with them. They're largely women, but not exclusively, to prevent repeat victimization. Next one, please. Now, I think ownership of this model by professional societies and groups is important. So the College of Emergency Medicine here is the UK's professional body for emergency department specialists. About 10 years ago now, they published this guideline. So this is supported by the relevant professional body for emergency department doctors. Next one, please. Now, this has been implemented in a number of countries now, as was kindly introduced at the beginning. There is a Cardiff United States network now, which is featured online, with about 20 cities implementing the model or preparing to implement it now. In fact, the number's gone up a bit since this slide was prepared. But this is supported by the World Health Organization. It's been endorsed by the WHO. There is a CDC toolkit in the United States, and the Cardiff model has been implemented in the Netherlands, Holland, Australia, Colombia, Jamaica, and also in South Africa, particularly in the Western Cape area of South Africa. Next one, please. And here's some resources for you. This is the CDC's Cardiff Model Toolkit, our own 2023 report. This is the International Violence Prevention Network, and then the WHO's Strategy for Ending Violence Against Children, which is where the Cardiff model sits in WHO policy. And next one, please. I think we've got one more. Here we are. But I end with showing you again those two people. This is about preventing violence for individual people, and all of us working together can ensure that we don't see these people in our emergency department with all the injuries and the costs and the human tragedy that represents. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much for excellent lecture, Professor Chaplet. Okay, we will prepare the stage for the next session.
ขอบพระคุณท่านวิทยากรเป็นอย่างสูงนะคะในโอกาสนี้นะคะอาจจะต้องใช้เวลาสักครู่เพื่อเตรียมพื้นที่นะคะเพื่อเข้าสู่เซสชันการเสวนาเพื่อสร้างแรงบันดาลใจต่อไปนะคะค่ะจะเห็นได้ว่าท่านวิทยากรนะคะท่านก็ได้แนะนำนะคะถึงโมเดลนี้นะคะซึ่งการทำงานร่วมกันการแชร์ข้อมูลร่วมกันนะคะก็ไม่ใช่แค่อยู่ที่งานสาธารณสุขไม่ใช่แค่อยู่ที่งานการป้องกันอาชญากรรมหรือป้องกันความรุนแรงในแง่มุมอื่นนะคะการใช้ข้อมูลร่วมกันเนี่ยนะคะจากข้อมูลในห้องฉุกเฉินนะคะนำไปสู่การป้องกันอาชญากรรมและป้องกันความรุนแรงที่เกิดขึ้นนะคะเช่นข้อมูลบางส่วนเนี่ยทางงานของทางด้านคุณตำรวจเองอาจจะไม่ได้ข้อมูลที่ตรงกันนะคะจากกับข้อมูลที่ทางการแพทย์ได้นะคะเพราะฉะนั้นการแชร์ข้อมูลร่วมกันเนี่ยแหละค่ะก็ท่าน professor บอกนะคะการ work together หรือทำงานร่วมกันก็จะทำให้ปัญหาความรุนแรงและปัญหาอาชญากรรมของเราลดลงได้นะคะดังที่ได้มีการ apply ใช้ไปในหลายประเทศแล้วนะคะในลำดับต่อไปนะคะเดี๋ยวเราจะได้เตรียมเพื่อเข้าสู่เซสชันที่น่าสนใจมากๆนะคะแล้วก็เราได้รับเกียรติเป็นอย่างสูงนะคะจากท่านนายแพทย์วิวัฒน์โรจนพิทยากรนะคะท่านจะได้มาให้เกียรติดำเนินรายการในช่วงนี้นะคะรวมทั้งอีกทั้งนายแพทย์คำนวณอึ้งชูศักดิ์นะคะท่านก็จะได้ร่วมเป็นผู้ดำเนินรายการร่วมอีกท่านหนึ่งด้วยค่ะอันนี้เข้าใจว่าทางสเตจก็พร้อมแล้วเนาะค่ะ
Okay. So the next session we have inspirational session on the Cardiff Model behind the success and lesson learned for Thailand. So we have the panelists in this session. The first one, Professor Dr. Jonathan P. Chaplet, Prince Mahidol Award Laureate for 2024, Director of Institute of Crime and Security Innovation, Cardiff University, United Kingdom. And we have the moderator, Dr. Vivat Rojana Pithiyakorn, Prince Mahidol Award Laureate for 2009, ASEAN-Plus Field Epidemiology Training Network Foundation. And we also have co-moderator, Dr. Kamnuan Eungchusak, Senior Expert in Preventive Medicine, ASEAN-Plus Field Epidemiology Training Network Foundation.
ค่ะในโอกาสนี้นะคะดิฉันขออนุญาตแนะนำประวัติของท่านอาจารย์นายแพทย์วิวัฒน์โรจนพิทยากรสักครู่นะคะขออนุญาตแนะนำประวัติของท่านเพียงเล็กน้อยนะคะเพราะว่าประวัติทั้งการทำงานนะคะแล้วก็ประวัติทางด้านทั้งทางวิชาการและงานทางด้านสาธารณสุขท่านมีเยอะมากมายเหลือเกินนะคะปัจจุบันนะคะท่านนายแพทย์วิวัฒน์โรจนพิทยากรนะคะท่านดำรงตำแหน่งเลขาธิการ Asian University Network นะคะ Health Promotion Sub Network นะคะและผู้อำนวยการโครงการสุขภาพโลกมหาวิทยาลัยมหิดลนะคะสำหรับการศึกษาของท่านนะคะท่านจบการศึกษาวิทยาศาสตร์บัณฑิตคณะวิทยาศาสตร์มหาวิทยาลัยมหิดลนะคะแพทยศาสตร์บัณฑิตคณะแพทยศาสตร์โรงพยาบาลรามาธิบดีมหาวิทยาลัยมหิดลค่ะและการศึกษาระดับปริญญาโทนะคะสาธารณสุขศาสตร์มหาบัณฑิตคณะสาธารณสุขศาสตร์มหาวิทยาลัยมหิดลค่ะนอกจากนี้นะคะสำหรับประวัติการฝึกอบรมของท่านนะคะท่านได้ประกาศนียบัตร Field Epidemiology นะคะ Training Program นะคะของกระทรวงสาธารณสุขค่ะอนุมัติบัตรผู้มีความรู้ความชำนาญในการประกอบวิชาชีพเวชกรรมสาขาเวชศาสตร์ป้องกันนะคะรวมถึงท่านได้ศึกษาอบรมด้านวิทยาศาสตร์สาธารณสุขณ Cardiff University และ University of Ottawa ประเทศแคนาดาด้วยค่ะสำหรับประวัติการทำงานที่สำคัญของท่านนะคะมีมากมายเหลือเกินนะคะ ท่านเป็นผู้อำนวยการโรคเอดส์คนแรกของกระทรวงสาธารณสุขนะคะในตำแหน่งผู้อำนวยการศูนย์ป้องกันและควบคุมโรคเอดส์กรมควบคุมโรคติดต่อนะคะท่านเป็นหัวหน้าทีมของโครงการเอดส์แห่งสหประชาชาติประจำเอเชียและแปซิฟิกนะคะท่านเป็นที่ปรึกษาอาวุโสและหัวหน้าทีมเอดส์สำนักงานองค์การอนามัยโลกประจำประเทศจีนแล้วก็ท่านยังเป็นผู้แทนองค์การอนามัยโลกประจำประเทศมองโกเลียด้วยนะคะผลงานทั้งทางวิชาการท่านมีมากมายจริงๆเลยนะคะทำให้ส่วนการทำงานด้านที่เกี่ยวกับโรคเอดส์ของท่านนะคะทำให้ท่านได้รับรางวัลสมเด็จเจ้าฟ้ามหิดลสาขาการสาธารณสุขประจำปี 2552 ค่ะเข้าใจว่าตอนนี้เวทีพร้อมแล้วนะคะดิฉันขออนุญาตนะคะให้ทุกท่านปรบมือต้อนรับนะคะท่านวิทยากรผู้มีเกียรติทั้ง3ท่านของเราค่ะเรียนเชิญท่านอาจารย์นายแพทย์วิวัฒน์โรจนพิทยากรนะคะ